Internalizing the chosen one myth and adopting the main character mindset is destroying our potential. But seriously, when we live as if we're waiting for destiny's call or believing we're special by default, we might actually be holding ourselves back. Ego, entitlement, and waiting for the perfect moment could be sabotaging our growth. You don't become the chosen one by heeding the call. You become the one through your own choices. Today, we'll explore this and more. And stick around to the end because I'll share 5 practical tools you can start using right now to stop waiting and start creating some real meaning in your life. Now, before we dive in, it's important to note that this video is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the nuances of the chosen one trope, existentialism too. We'll be exploring these ideas at a surface level, but there's always more to the conversation. It's also worth acknowledging that while we'll be critiquing the chosen one narrative as applied to real life, there are positive aspects to most things. As with any philosophical discussion, the goal is to encourage critical thinking and personal reflection. So with that all said, what is the chosen one? In science fiction and fantasy, there's a narrative we constantly encounter, the so-called chosen one. An ordinary individual, unremarkable at first glance, is destined for greatness. Think Neo in The Matrix. He's not merely skilled, he's literally proclaimed.
He is the one.
Or Paul Atreides in Dune, a messianic figure prophesized and manipulated into his role. Even Harry Potter, marked by fate before he ever knew magic existed. These stories resonate because they offer comfort, the idea that life is guided by a hidden, predetermined purpose. And we as audiences love these stories. And these stories are very closely related to the now infamous hero's journey. The hero's journey is a narrative blueprint that traces a protagonist's transformation through a series of stages, beginning with an unexpected call to adventure, facing challenges with the guidance of mentors, and ultimately returning home forever changed. This model identifies recurring motifs found in myths across different cultures, revealing a universal pattern of growth and change. Over time, the structure has become a cornerstone in storytelling, with fantasy authors like Brandon Sanderson embedding these transformative stages in his intricate world building and character arcs, and television creators like Dan Harmon adapting the model into his own story circle to craft engaging narratives. Because who needs the thrill of unscripted life when you can have the comfort of pre-written destiny? So, this idea that everything has a predetermined purpose or goal is called teleology. It's been around for a long time. Even the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle was a fan. He thought that everything in nature had its own built-in purpose, but the existentialists, they weren't having that. They had a totally different take on this whole meaning of life thing. Basically, the existentialists had a problem with putting too much faith in destiny. They thought it could make us lazy, just sitting around waiting for life to happen instead of going out there and making it happen. Sartre, one of the big names in existentialism, had this great quote: "Man is condemned to be free." Sounds pretty heavy, right?
Oh, this is heavy.
What he meant, though, was that our freedom is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, we get to choose our path. But on the other hand, we can't blame anyone when things go wrong. It's all on us. But more on this later. We now have 2 conflicting perspectives: the comforting myth of destiny and the challenging but liberating idea of radical freedom. To help us break this down, let's revisit our friend Neo.
It's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
In this scene, Neo, our archetypal chosen one hero, is showing that he's not just accepting his fate, he's taking control of his story. And he's showing us what existentialists believe, that we aren't born with a set purpose or identity. Instead, we create who we are through the choices we make and the actions we take. So now that we have some firm ground to stand on, we need to think, is the chosen one trope just a harmless narrative device? Or could it be shaping how we approach our own lives? In the next section, we'll examine some of the pitfalls in believing that our fates are calling. So what's the harm in a little fantasy, right? We love a chosen one. It's just entertainment after all. Well, the problem is, these stories might influence us more than we realize. We'll focus our aim on 3 reasons these might be affecting us negatively. First, internalizing the chosen one narrative can lead to passivity and helplessness. If we convince ourselves greatness comes from destiny, we might start waiting for a sign, a call to adventure, or external validation before taking meaningful action. Take a second and think about it. How often have you hesitated, waiting for permission or a perfect moment before pursuing something important to you? Even worse, the chosen one myth can create an unhealthy dependence on external approval. If we think our worth is determined by a grand destiny, we might constantly seek that approval from others, waiting for someone else to confirm that we're on the right path. That can lead to something called existential paralysis, where we become so fixated on fulfilling this supposed destiny that we lose touch with our authentic selves. Another pitfall is how the chosen one narrative undervalues the journey itself. These stories focus so heavily on the final victory that they neglect the real substance, the trials, errors, and growth that genuinely shape us. In reality, life doesn't come with neat resolutions. We don't reach a moment where the credits roll and everything wraps up neatly. Instead, life keeps going. We keep learning, struggling, growing. Maybe that's why audiences crave endless sequels, because deep down, we're not satisfied with the hero being done. We want to keep seeing them in action, keep seeing them learn the lessons that they constantly do. This was hilariously satirized in the movie Tropic Thunder, where one man is chosen to save the world, no fewer than 6 times.
America, a disaster area.
My fellow Americans to come together.
The world called on the one man who could make a difference. When it happened again, the world called on him once more. And no one saw it coming 3 more times.
Another one. Look at the Star Wars saga. First, Anakin was a chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. Then, Luke carried the torch. By the sequel trilogy, Rey emerges as yet another chosen figure, discovering her lineage and destiny once more. Even in a galaxy far, far away, Destiny loves reruns. With that said, it's important to remember that self-belief and confidence are crucial to personal growth and success. The chosen one narrative can be problematic when it leads to passivity, but a healthy sense of self-belief can be empowering. The key is to finding a balance between believing in yourself and creating your own choices. So while the chosen one narrative can inspire, it's crucial to recognize its limitations. Now that we've seen how deeply the chosen one myth might limit us, let's move forward and examine how existentialism offers powerful alternatives, giving us radical freedom and authenticity, no destiny required. So if destiny isn't calling, and there's no AI or space wizard waiting to choose you, what's another choice we can make? Well, this is where existentialism steps in, challenging us to embrace freedom and responsibility. Seriously though, this philosophy is like Spider-Man. With great power comes great anxiety. Existentialism is all about the idea that life doesn't come with a built-in meaning or purpose. It's up to us to decide what our lives mean. Sartre explained that with his famous idea that existence precedes essence. When you think about this idea, it's kind of amazing. It means we have the freedom to create our own purpose, our own story. Jean-Paul Sartre and some philosophers like him believed in this freedom so much and believed that that is what makes life so exciting and full of potential. And because this is a big idea, let's break it down a little bit further. So Sartre believed that humans are fundamentally different from objects. A hammer, for example, has a predefined essence or purpose determined by its creator to hammer nails. In contrast, humans do not. Their belief basically states that we're not created with a specific essence or purpose. We simply exist first, and then we define our essence through the choices we make and the actions we take. To go a step further, let's imagine a blank canvas. It exists first without any predefined meaning or purpose. It's only when the artist starts painting that the canvas takes meaning. Similarly, we as humans exist first, then our meaning and purpose comes later. We are the artists of our own lives. Let's make it a little bit more accessible and let's look at an example from more recently. In Blade Runner 2049, the main character Kay initially believes that he might be chosen, a child destined to change society. But as he navigates his identity, he finds that he's not who he thought he was. He's devastated at first, realizing he isn't special.
Deckard only wanted his baby to be safe. And she is. When the time comes, I will show her to the world, and she will lead our army.
She?
Of course. Rachel had a daughter. That is just a piece of the puzzle. You imagined it was you.
Yet, ironically, it's this crushing revelation that sets Kay free. Despite his momentary despair, he finds purpose in choosing to act, not because he's destined, but because he decides it's meaningful. This is existentialism at work, finding empowerment not in destiny, but in our freedom to choose. And that freedom to choose does come with responsibility. If meaning is created by us, then we can't blame fate or others when things go wrong. Sartre called this being condemned to be free. It means there's no one else to credit or blame for our choices. Scary? Sure. Empowering? Absolutely. But seriously, think about your own life. How often have you blamed circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your situation? Existentialism challenges us to ask, what if we owned every decision, every action? How would that change things? With existential thought and some practical techniques, maybe we can be the people who shift from waiting to acting. So now, let's consider how you can actually use this philosophy to start taking control and creating some real meaning and purpose in everyday life. Let's get practical, gang. Here are 5 powerful tools that combine philosophy with actionable steps that we can start using today, going from general to very tangible. The first one is a mindset tool. It's about changing your mindset to radical responsibility. And this is that idea that we are entirely responsible for our choices, even when life is unfair. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, taught this in his book. Man's Search for Meaning talks about this and discusses that even in extreme suffering, we always retain the freedom to choose how we respond. So if Frankl could find freedom and responsibility, even in the darkest times, imagine what this mindset shift could do for you. Take a moment right now. Come on, pause the video. Think of a situation when you've been blaming someone or something else. How would your power and perspective change if you took radical responsibility instead? No pressure, right? Just the weight of your entire existence on your shoulders. But hey, at least you're not alone. We're all in this existential crisis together. The next tool is called reframing. It's a practical technique commonly used in psychology and personal development. While not strictly existentialist in the academic sense, it follows a similar train of thought by shifting from passive acceptance to an active creation. Basically, instead of asking yourself what went wrong, existentialism and reframing encourages a shift to asking, what can I create from this? So here's a practical way to use this. Think of a recent situation where something didn't go as planned. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, grab a pen and paper, cross out that question and replace it with, what can I create from this? Then list 3 proactive actions or responses. Repeatedly doing this changes your mind and trains you to shift from focusing on problems to creating solutions. And even better, some studies in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT for short, have concluded that reframing negative or passive questions into proactive statements significantly improves problem solving and reduces feelings of anxiety and hopelessness. This next one is a structured writing exercise. The idea is simple but powerful. Confront the possibility that nobody's coming to save you. Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his essay Self-Reliance, famously argued that true strength comes from depending on yourself, not from external saviors or destiny. But I'm sure we could have gotten that from the title, right? So here's your exercise. Sit down and write a short essay, just one page, titled, "What If No One's Coming to Save Me?" Describe in detail how your actions, attitudes, and goals would change if this were true. Maybe they are already where they need to be, but the reminder doesn't hurt. And, like reframing, studies in psychology show that this type of expressive writing can boost both emotional resilience and motivation. The next protocol is about practicing existential mindfulness, being fully aware of your existence. In good news, multiple rounds of research have shown that regular mindfulness practice can improve mental clarity, emotional stability, and decision making. So here's our protocol. Set 3 reminders on your phone each day, morning, afternoon, and evening. When they go off, pause. Ask yourself, am I truly present right now? Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I here in this situation that I'm living in? Just a few mindful pauses a day can make a big difference. Finally, existential journaling is about free writing for self-discovery. Putting your thoughts and feelings into words helps us clarify our values, uncover hidden beliefs, and strengthen our sense of self. Don't underestimate journaling. It can reveal parts of yourself that you didn't even know needed revealing. And this exercise takes a decidedly existential tilt. Spend just 15 minutes writing freely, using prompts like, if I wasn't waiting for permission, what would I do today? What would I do now? Or, what small action can I take right now to create more meaning? Write honestly and freely. Just let yourself go. And good news, research shows that expressive journaling significantly reduces mental health issues, stress, and can increase self-understanding. So, existentialism isn't about waiting to be chosen. It's about choosing yourself. We've explored how the comforting myth of the chosen one might be holding you back, and how existentialist philosophy offers something far more empowering: radical freedom and responsibility. You now have 5 practical tools to start living this philosophy. From radical responsibility, reframing setbacks into creative opportunities, to journaling and mindfulness. If you're interested in learning more about existentialism and its implications for your life, there are many resources available. You could start by reading works by famous existentialist thinkers like Sartre, but there are also tons of online courses and lectures that delve into the nitty-gritty and both general overviews. Remember, often, life is a journey of self-discovery and growth. It's not always about finding the right answers, but about asking the right questions and having the courage to create your own meaning. So, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep choosing your own path. I'd love to hear from you. Which tool resonated with you, and how are you planning to apply them? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation, because life's too short to wait around for someone else to write your script. And AI writes all the scripts these days anyway, right?